Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the next episode of the BRIO in the Box podcast. What are we going to talk about today?
So it's just about November, and we are going to throw a new challenge out there. And this challenge is called No Shit November.
Yeah. So this was something that we were just feeling like we needed was a good clean month.
Yeah.
Tighten up the diet, take out any of those little extra, shitty food, processed food things here and there.
Yeah.
Go a month without alcohol. We figured November seems like a good time.
Last year when we did the grit grind, it was for us anyways, it was over Halloween, it was over Thanksgiving, and we didn't miss out on those things, but we didn't do the full thing. This year we did participate. And so we've gone from, Thanksgiving in October, December, we've got Christmas coming up. So we figure there's not a lot going on in November. It's kind of one of those months where there's not a lot of Christmas parties happening yet. Usually even the holiday in November is Remembrance Day. And that is not about getting together and having a big meal and having treats and stuff. It's more about, recognizing that people did some very difficult things. Any CrossFit gym you go to is probably doing some sort of hero workout on that day. So we figured, let's extend that mentality for the whole month. Let's try to do something challenging in the month of November.
And then we thought, why keep that to ourselves? We might as well just open it up to the whole community. Let's do this thing together. I feel like there's probably always lots of us that are like, I could stand to tighten things up and challenge myself a little bit more on the nutrition side here. So yeah, we're really just going to try to eat real food.
Yeah.
And that question, what does that mean? What is real food? Shouldn't be as complicated as it is. The processed food companies have been very successful in muddying the waters so that people these days, humans that have been feeding ourselves successfully for a few million years, all of a sudden are like, I don't know what to eat. What's food?
Yeah.
And there's so many mixed messages and stuff out there.
Yeah. It turns out Captain Crunch is not actually real food.
Not actually food.
Go figure.
There's a lot of edible food-like substances out there.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that are part of a balanced breakfast, but it's like the balance is all the other stuff. And then you just happen to have a sugary bowl of crap along with it.
I don't know what we're balancing there exactly,
I
but
know. So, okay, we're just super simple. The easiest way to look at this thing is you're going to eat single ingredient items. So if there's no list of ingredients, if you just pick it up and this is an apple or this is a carrot or this is chicken or steak or rice or whatever, single ingredient, you're probably good to go.
That's, I think, how you could make this challenge if you want to consider it challenging. The simplest, the least cognitive effort is you just fill your grocery cart with single ingredient items and then you're good to go. What that requires then, the effort on your part is preparing and cooking those ingredients into meals at home.
Yeah.
But that's fine. And really from a cost savings perspective, if you take out a few of those nights in a restaurant or nights where you skip the dishes or even just hit the drive-through at Wendy's kind of thing, you just buy a chicken at the grocery store for $10 or $12 or whatever they are. That's what you pay for a burger at Wendy's these days. So
And Costco still has their $6.99 full chickens that they continue to do.
Yeah.
And you can't go to a fast food restaurant for $6.99. There's just nothing, So there's definitely a lot of options as far as just single ingredient cost saving stuff. But yeah, if it has one ingredient, you're probably okay.
Definitely in the clear.
Yeah.
So then you don't have to question anything. Other things you might choose to put in your cart then are going to require you to start to read ingredient lists on things.
Right.
That's another part of this challenge is start to just pay attention to what are you eating and what is in the things that you're eating.
Yeah.
And this is where that question of, is this food, starts to get a little bit more complicated. So there's a handout that goes along with this. This was actually something I made for the kids camp to try to help the kids identify what's food. But honestly, the kids are kind of at the mercy of whatever the parents are buying because kids aren't out there doing the grocery shopping. So first big question to ask yourself is, why was this made, right? Is this a commercial product designed to maximize profit? Then that's probably not a real food. The processed food companies, they only care about using the cheapest ingredients with the longest shelf life and getting you hooked on hyper palatable flavors to get you to buy more.
Right.
Nutrition or your health is not part of that equation. And I tell people this all the time. So when I have an undergrad and a master's in marketing and finance, which is how to sell things and make money. And a huge part of that education revolves around food marketing because it's one of the places where marketing makes the biggest difference because people make so many food purchase decisions. And if you can influence even 5% of those, you can pick up lots of profit for the company. But the problem with food companies is they call it the problem of the fixed stomach. There's only so many people. Population grows at a predictable rate. People only eat so much. So the share of the market is constrained. So then the food companies are always just fighting each other. There's no way to grow the whole pie to, have more profit in a different area. So the only way they can make more money is to steal market share from someone else, to use cheaper ingredients, or to get people to eat more.
Right.
And so fixing the problem of the fixed stomach is their purposeful design of the foods to turn off your natural satiety mechanisms that would make you just stop eating because you've had enough. Yeah. Which I think we can see that is playing out fairly successfully.
They're doing a very good job.
They're doing a very good job.
Killing it.
Yeah. Excuse me. So then, does this thing have spiffy packaging with lots of bold marketing claims? Because if it's made of shitty, cheap ingredients, they need to fancy it up and try to trick you into thinking that this is, good food or whatever. So aggressive marketing is par for the course with ultra processed foods. If you look at an apple, it has like a sticker on it with a code and that's it. Or like the salmon is just the UPC code. Like they don't need to come with a lot of fancy marketing.
Or massive advertising campaigns. You know, like when have you ever heard of a recent new actual food that's been discovered and a huge marketing campaign around it? New and exciting egg. It's just like, no, that's just, we've always had that stuff in our diet. So,
and there's some marketing from like the egg board and the dairy board and stuff. Where
just because they're trying to stay above water when they're trying to just hold on with all these people buying processed food.
Yeah. So be suspicious of marketing gobbledygook, like natural, organic, high protein, low in saturated fat, low sodium, whole grain, high fiber, and then especially heart healthy.
Yeah.
That's almost certainly going to be an ultra processed food. So you think, why was this made? If it's a profit oriented item, it's probably an ultra processed food. How was this made? Could this be made in my own kitchen? So there's sometimes people that are very disingenuous to go, well, cooking is a form of processing and, grinding something up is a form of processing. So we can't just say all processed foods are bad. Okay, fine. That's a bad actor and, someone trying to have that debate. In order to solve that differentiation, back in 2009, some researchers came up with something called the NOVA food classification system. And there's 4 levels, class 1, 2, 3, 4. Class 4 foods are ultra processed foods, UPFs. So that's a thing with a specific definition now. And then the class 1, 2, and 3 foods are like a class 1 food is like a raw carrot, like no processing required to it whatsoever. And then there can be things that are like fermented, dried, cooked, roasted, boiled, mashed, ground, levels of food processing, but in the way that people have been cooking naturally for hundreds of thousands of years since we learned to control fire 1.8 million years ago.
And a lot of the foods, you have to process them. Like you can't eat raw chicken. You have to cook it, and that's the processing to make it a stage 2.
Yeah, right? You can't eat a raw potato. Yeah. It's toxic, like those kinds of things. So there's definitely a difference between processing of food in the sense of like cooking or preserving naturally and ultra processed foods. There's a clear differentiation between those two things. Processing of food you can do in your kitchen. So you can juice a lemon. I could give you olives and you could get olive oil out of that. You would just cold press them. You're literally just juicing olives. I could give you wheat and you could grind it up. So there's things that you can do in your own kitchen. I could give you cabbage and you could ferment it into sauerkraut. Ask Wade. He'll have a basement full of it before too long. So if you can do it in your own kitchen, that's not an ultra processed food. Yeah. But if it's something that requires industrial chemicals or industrial equipment to make it, then that's an ultra processed food. So I could give you canola seeds, which canola is not a naturally occurring plant. You could not get canola oil out of it. You couldn't make canola oil. You would need industrial hexane extraction and bleaching and deodorizing and all these like crazy levels of turning seeds into edible oils. So
unless you live in a factory that uses
full of industrial chemicals,
you probably can't do it in your house.
So it's an ultra processed food. How is this made? So you think, what has been done to the ingredients? If they've been refined, if they've been heated to extreme, if they've been solvent extracted, bleached, pulverized, or otherwise made unrecognizable from their original form, then this is probably an ultra processed food. Right. So some questions you're starting to ask yourself when you're looking at the labels on things. Does it have a label with an ingredient list? Well, now we're like, if it does, there's a higher probability, although not 100%, that this is an ultra processed food. Right. So the things we said before, steak, salmon, chicken, apple, those things don't have an ingredient list. They just are food. Does it have more than 5 ingredients? You're like, oh, okay, this is like a red flag. Ultra processed foods tend to be novel concoctions of dozens of different ingredients, many of which you cannot even pronounce and you don't know what they are. Yeah. So some of the 3 major things that you've heard me talk about lots before: flour. All flour, but especially bleached and fortified flour, is a clear sign that this is an ultra processed food. Flour is like there's like the 3 horsemen of ultra processing, and flour is one. Does it contain added sugar? So sugar that's been refined out of its natural plant form, probably from beets or cane. But on food labels, it goes by at least 56 different names. So
56.
56, yeah.
Jeez.
There's sugar, but then there's also other things like high fructose corn syrup, cane syrup, maltodextrin, agave nectar, molasses, barley malt, fruit juice concentrate. Those are all other names for sugar.
And they do that to sneak it in and make you think that you don't have any added sugar, right?
But what's super cool about Canada now, Canada changed its labeling laws recently, and you'll notice now that it will say sugars, and they have to be grouped together in one. And now all those things are in brackets as one, because they used to get away with this chicanery where they would use multiple types of sugar in different amounts, and they would be able to sprinkle them in throughout the ingredient, because ingredients are listed in from most to least, most amount to smallest amount.
So if you have 6 different types of sugar in there, it could seem like there's not a lot of sugar when if you group them all together, it's like the number one ingredient.
Yeah. So welcome to a Cliff Bar. Now, I had just posted on the Keto Athlete about Cliff Bars. They sure market themselves like they're healthy. The number one ingredient on those pieces of garbage is sugar. It's 6 different types of sugar.
Yeah.
I was on a rant about picking up trash at my kid's school, at Dash's school. The playground was just covered in packages from bars and shit. But it was like not candy bars. It wasn't like Snickers, but it was all of these like Cliff Bars and Cliff Energy and stuff. And people thinking they're packing, I guess, healthy snacks. The front of the package says plant-based energy. Like,
my favorite is the high in energy, because you're just like high in calories.
That's literally, they can't think of anything better to say than this is high in calories.
Yeah.
Plant-based energy. So sugar, that's calories from sugar. All sugar comes from plants.
That's what our kids need, is much more high energy foods.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then a handy rule of thumb, this is, I taught the kids this and I tell people all the time. If sugar is one of the first 3 ingredients, this is a dessert. Welcome to Vector cereal. Yeah. Sugar is one of the first 3 ingredients. That's not breakfast, that's dessert.
Breakfast dessert.
Breakfast dessert. So that's also a handy rule of thumb. I was at Whole Foods in Victoria last weekend. We went there for dinner to pick up from their hot bar to try to eat real food on the road. And I was looking at one of the salads, and they do list the ingredients. So it's like in the fresh food bar thing that you can pick up. One of the salads, the first ingredient was sugar.
Oh, man.
And I was like, look, I was with Jason and Val. I was like, this salad is a dessert. It was like peas and beets and stuff. But whatever dressing they had on it, that thing was literally more sugar than it was vegetables.
That's gross.
And I was like, that's gross. Yeah. Okay, so we got flour, we got sugar. The third bad guy is seed oils.
Yeah.
Watch out for the Hateful Eight, like Kate Shanahan calls them that. Sunflower oil, safflower, canola, corn, soybean, cottonseed, grapeseed, rice bran oil. If it contains one of those seed or bean oils, it is definitely an ultra-processed food. Right. I would say seed oils are like the definition of ultra-processing, how they go from seeds of plants to pure refined oil. Yep. I'll post a video of how that's made. It's really disgusting.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
It is pretty gross. So those are the big 3. Flour, sugar, vegetable oil, no go. Now we get further down the ingredient list and you start to find these other weird things that you like can't pronounce. You're like, what is this? And why is this in here? Emulsifiers or stabilizers. Food additive agents used to extend shelf life, increases profitability by preventing the separation of ingredients. So prevents like oils separating from solids. Keep an eye out for guar gum, gel-end gum, carrageenan, mono-N diglycerides, cellulose, carboxymethylcellulose, soy lecithin, xanthan gum, phosphates, polyglycerol esters, PGEs, polysorbate 60, 65, and 80. Those are all the things that when you start to read ingredient lists, you're like, why is this in my food? Like, what is this?
And the good thing about this is that you don't have to remember a single one of those words.
You just have to go.
You'll see something and know a word and be like, I have no idea what this is.
Yeah,
and you're like,
hey,
food. That's not going to be going in. That's out.
Nope. But to learn more about these things, so what we thought would be cool in conjunction with No Shit November was to do this like a book club.
Yeah.
So you and I both read this book a little while ago. It's called Ultra Processed People. Great book.
Yeah, it was good.
I've read dozens of books on nutrition and about food and the food industry and all kinds of stuff. This is definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Well written, very well researched, but very easy to understand, unfolds like a story. So we're going to do that along with trying to tune up the diet.
Yeah. And the good thing about that book is that it's not a diet book. It doesn't tell you at all what to eat.
No.
It just explains what all these different additives are, where they come from, what they do. So it kind of gives you a little bit more understanding of what you're actually putting into your body. And he actually does a hilarious thing in the book where he recommends that while you're reading the book, you eat as much ultra processed food as possible so that you can like at the end of it be like, oh shit, that was not ideal. We're kind of doing the opposite, which is probably a better way of doing it. Yeah, it's a great read.
Yeah. He thinks you should get yourself so grossed out. It's sort of like to make yourself quit smoking. You should lock yourself in a closet and smoke 8 packs in one day. That's kind of how he approaches it. It's like he eats almost nothing but ultra processed food for a month and then observes just how he's a doctor and has all the medical tests and everything and observes how much his health declines and everything. So he's pretty funny about it. But the nice thing is it's 304 pages. Yeah. Okay, divided by 30 days. All we got to do is read 10 pages a day.
Yeah.
So we'll break that down into little chunks. And before you know it, you'll be through the whole book by the end of the month. And so in addition to have tuned up your own diet, you'll have way more understanding about what those things are when you flip something over and read the ingredient label. Essential knowledge to navigate your way through the world these days.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole point of this is to do something challenging, but to learn something as well. And whenever I do these types of things, I like to go full send. I always like to like really jump in with both feet. So I've decided as part of my like no shit November, I'm also going to do like a mental health kind of break, and I'm going to get off of social media scrolling. It's not that I'll never use Instagram for the gym or whatever, but I spend way more time than I need to just mindlessly scrolling through YouTube or Reddit or Instagram or whatever.
When you could have read 10 pages of a book.
Yeah. And that's just it. If you are like, well, I don't have time to read 10 pages. Like, bullshit. Well, how much time do you spend just looking at your phone? Probably useless cat pictures and stupid stuff like that. I'm sure you can scrape together 10 to 20 minutes every day to spend some time learning and making yourself a better person. Yeah. So yeah, it doesn't have to include that, but we want you to read the book and we want you to understand a little bit more about this topic.
So the book itself, I have 2 copies. So I'd said the first 2 people that threw their name in the hat for No Shit November can borrow one of my 2 copies. Just give it back when you're done. I looked, Saskatoon Public Library has a couple in stock, and then they have their e-reader thing where you can borrow the ebook version on their app from them. You can also download it on Kindle. I read everything on my Kindle. Yeah. So then I just always have it on my phone. So then if I find myself on an airplane or in a waiting room or something where I would otherwise just flip my phone out and scroll nonsense, I try to open a book and just read a few pages of a book at a time. Yeah. And then I like to keep my notes and highlights and everything all organized in one place. Yeah.
And we've already read this book, but we're going to do it again. As part of this. We're going to reread it, just to stay together.
Yeah. So this was a quote from, it's actually page 20, right early on in the book. You'll be reading this on day 2. Usually the aim of ultra-processed foods is to replace the ingredients of a traditional and much loved food with cheaper alternatives and additives that extend shelf life, facilitate centralized distribution, and it turns out drive excess consumption. Pies, fried chicken, pizza, butter, pancake mix, pastries, gravies, mayonnaise, all these things began as real food, but the non-ultra processed food versions are expensive, so their traditional ingredients are often replaced with cheap, sometimes entirely synthetic alternatives. So something like butter became margarine made out of hydrogenated vegetable oils. Cottonseed oil originally, that was a byproduct of the cotton manufacturing industry. Cottonseed oil was originally used as like an engine lubricant, and then they were like, hey, how can we figure out how to feed this to people? Let's tell them it's heart healthy. Let's start there. So I think it's important to remember that a lot of the things you identify as ultra processed foods, you could make a real version in your own kitchen if you're willing to just do a little bit of work, which is what people had to do forever and ever to survive. So this shouldn't be like an outlandishly ridiculous demand on our skills. So something like bread. Every loaf of bread you're going to find in the grocery store is an ultra processed food. They're all going to contain humectants and stabilizers and sugar and all kinds of things. But that doesn't mean that you can't eat bread. It just means that none of that is bread. Right. None of that is what your great grandma on the farm making bread would recognize. She would look at the ingredient and be like, what is all this shit in here? This isn't how you make bread. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I did with the kids at the kids camp was I bought wheat, like wheat berries from Bulk Barn. Just went and bought wheat. I bought like a $20 or $30 little grinder from Amazon. And we ground the wheat into our own flour and made a very simple little yogurt dough and made our own flatbreads. Yeah. And they were great. The kids loved them. They were really tasty. We put garlic butter on them. We had them with souvlaki and lemon rice and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were super delicious. So things like this, where I'm not saying you can't eat bread. I'm just saying that shit is not bread.
Yep.
If you want to eat it, you're going to have to put in a little more work to do it yourself.
A lot of people will make themselves sourdough. That's like a big thing. And it's just one extra step of going and getting some wheat and grinding it yourself. And it's so funny because people are like, that's so inconvenient, but it's like so many coffee aficionados will grind their own beans every day. Like if you just have the right tools for the job, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Right. So if that bread is one of your things and you really want to still do that, you can make some pretty awesome homemade bread. And that's a great practice of like actually seeing what goes into the making of your food.
There's bread making machines that will do that whole thing for you. If you really wanted to just invest in like you said, the right tools, they will grind the flour and rise the dough and make, in their own little machine. There's all kinds of nifty stuff. So yeah, I think it's just getting a little closer back to the real deal.
Yeah. And if all of that sounds like a nightmare for you, then just take it easy on yourself. Just eat single ingredient things. You can have a month without bread. It's fine. You'll be okay.
Eggs and steak and salmon and vegetables, then it'll be fine. Yeah. And just see how good you could feel without those things. So keeping in mind some of the questions we would need to ask ourselves when we're now like this weirdo in the grocery store reading the ingredient label on everything, we thought we would take a look at some common items.
Yeah.
So if we're like, hey, we're going to try not to make this elaborately like expensive or demanding on our time, let's think of some simple things. So currently in our freezer right now, we have 2 packages. They're each 3 pounds of ground beef. There's Italian sausage fresh in the meat section at Costco that is just pork and spices. It has no wheat crumbs or anything weird in it. So there's 3 pounds of ground beef cooked with a pound of Italian sausage. And it's just like in a thing ready to go.
And the other thing from Costco that we use is just a super basic tomato sauce. And we actually have one of those.
So here you are, you're in Costco and you're like, I'm going to read the ingredient.
If you look at all of these ingredients, they're all just normal foods. This sauce has Italian whole peeled tomatoes, olive oil, onions, salt, garlic, basil, black pepper, and oregano. So you could make this on your own. It's just easier if you have a jar that's ready to go. But the key is to look at it, because a lot of the time you'll go to buy a tomato sauce and there'll be like canola oil or some sort of sweetener or whatever. So you just have to like check the ingredients.
Don't look on the front.
No.
Look on the side in the tiny print.
It does say no artificial ingredients, so good for you.
Yeah, which
They
is
are
true.
correct.
So could this be made in my own kitchen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Is this made of ingredients that I recognize and I have or could buy in my own kitchen? Yeah. Yes. So has anything weird been done to these ingredients? No. You could have made that tomato sauce in a pot on your stove and just canned it and saved it for later.
Yeah.
So there are commercially prepared items that are not ultra processed foods. They can save you some steps.
Yeah. And it's so convenient because you have your meat pre-cooked and you can have your like prep day or whatever, and you just make a whole bunch of stuff and just freeze it and have it ready to go. And then you can throw this in a slow cooker or a crock pot and it's ready to go like when you get home from work. Or it can be super fast and convenient.
Yeah. So I did that like a few days ago. Mass cooked like a whole bunch of meat at a time. A bunch of stuff is like semi-prepped.
Yeah.
So when we're busy or when I'm out of town, you can grab the cooked meat out of the freezer, throw it in the pot, throw the sauce on it. Like 15 minutes later, like dinner's ready. In that 15 minutes, maybe you're shredding some zucchini to serve it with, or cooking some rice or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
and that's just it. This doesn't have to go with pasta, right? Like you can have it with rice on the side, or you can just put it all over vegetables, and that's great as well. So you just have to think, plan ahead.
Another thing we like, Costco actually has a lot of great stuff. I'm going to like they should sponsor me. I should get one of those Kirkland hoodies. Kirkland signature. So I feel like I could be sponsored by Costco. They have burgers in the freezer section that are just sirloin beef, nothing else in them. No wheat crumbs, no canola oil, no other fillers, not even any spices or anything. They're literally just beef.
And it's like a 24 pack or something like that. It's pretty big.
Pretty big.
A tube of burgers.
A tube of burgers are like a third pound each, I think. Yeah. We cook them all at once. We barbecue them all, put cheese on them, and then we just have them in the fridge for like easy lunches for the kids, or like breakfast sometimes. I like a burger and a fried egg is awesome. We can think outside a little bit of the norm. Dinner, a couple of burger patties, a little bit of sauerkraut, some pickles, some mustard. You know, you can make like a really tasty meal out of that. We can free ourselves from the bun.
Yeah.
You know, just a burger doesn't have to only be served in a bun. There's lots of different ways that you can make that an easy, good quality protein thing.
I remember the last time we did one of these challenge, I was looking for something different to eat. And I just cooked up a couple of those burger patties. I cut up some little cherry tomatoes, put some Bufala mozzarella cheese on it, and a little bit of like balsamic vinegar and like some basil or however you say it. And it was like a caprese burger, and it was awesome, you know, and no bun needed. It's just a fork and knife, just as if it was a salad, right? It was great.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good idea. So you can get a little more creative with those things. And rather than cooking like 4 for dinner or 6 at a time, we just cook them all at once. If the barbecue's going, we're doing some dinner and some meal prep for the next couple days.
Yeah. I think a big mistake that a lot of people make is they consider certain foods to only be applicable to certain times of the day, you know, like breakfast, it tends to be like some sort of like bacon and eggs or a cereal or something like that. And then lunch tends to be everything sandwich. And then dinner, it's where you have your like stir fries and your steaks and your whatever. And the easiest thing you can do is make more than you need in the evening. And then for your lunch the next day, you have leftovers. Yeah. Because it's just one less step. It's already ready to go. It's super convenient. It's as convenient or more than a sandwich and still good.
Yeah. So if we start to think meal by meal, so breakfast, instead of being ultra processed granolas and cereals and toast and that kind of stuff, well, the classic egg.
Yep.
Put unsweetened yogurt with a little bit of berries and maybe some almonds on the side. Or instead of orange juice, just eat the orange in its whole form. It doesn't have to be juiced and minus the pulp and things like that. I love ground beef and then crack the eggs on top and cook it all together with like sour cream and salsa, like an egg taco bowl thing.
Yeah.
I do that quite a bit. So switch out some of those foods. And then lunchtime, instead of everything needing to be between 2 pieces of bread, which is fine if you make the bread yourself, but yeah, start to free yourself from the sandwich. We send lunch for Dash every day now that he's at his new school. Got his little thermos, and he almost always just gets leftovers of whatever the other night was. So chicken or salmon or meatballs or little cheeseburger bites or taco bowls.
Yeah, you know. He's all about the taco bowl. So just rice and taco spiced ground beef and a little bit of cheese and good to go. Yeah. Cheese is actually one of those ones that we should touch on because a block of cheese is just cheese. But if you get the shredded stuff, which is, I totally understand, way more convenient, they have to keep it from sticking to itself. So they put, what is it in there?
It's like an anti-caking agent. Yeah. So it'll have, when you look at the ingredients of shredded cheese, it'll be different than if you looked at the block of marble cheese, right? And marble cheese is just going to be dairy ingredients and the microbial enzymes and maybe like lactic acid. That's how you would just make cheese. The shredded stuff is going to have some extra other like cornstarchy type things or anti-caking agents, other chemical names for things. Would be like, why is this in my cheese? Yeah. It's because if you took the brick of cheese and shredded it and left it in your kitchen, it starts to clump back together. So they have to put anti-clumping and caking agents in it to keep it shredded apart.
So unfortunately, you're going to have to shred your own cheese.
Yeah. That's, you know, if you've been coming to swole class, you got those strong arms now. You got that, gets your arm pumped. You can shred your own cheese.
Yeah, that's what we're training for. On your abs.
That one got me. So some simple swaps, like that kind of thing. And then I think if we're just reading ingredient labels, you'll start to notice that the same food, it appears to be the same food on the front of the label, is actually one is food and one is an ultra processed food.
Right.
So a sour cream. So this is the one. Obviously, we like the full fat stuff. You're not going to fuck around with that reduced fat shit. Here's the ingredients. Milk ingredients, bacterial culture, microbial enzyme. This is food. There's one on the shelf at the co-op right next to it.
Same fat percentage. It looks pretty much like it's the same product.
It's even the same kind of brownish goldish color on it. Dairyland, 18% sour cream. The ingredients on that one are milk ingredients, modified cornstarch, guar gum, sodium citrate, carrageenan, disodium phosphate, and bacterial culture. Yeah. And you're like, why? Why does all that shit need to be in my sour cream when all I needed was milk and the bacteria to make it sour? So one is a processed food because it's been fermented. And the other one is an ultra processed food because it's full of all these other emulsifiers and stabilizers and stuff that did not need to be in there. This stuff is delicious.
And I say taste wise, they're the same, but texture wise, the one with the additives, it's like a little creamier. And that's why they add that stuff, right? So it's easier to maneuver. But when I use sour cream, I just put it and mush it all around anyways. So it doesn't matter. Save yourself those extra weird additives.
Yeah. How about the classic peanut butter?
Oh man. Learning about like fake peanut butter is so discouraging. I'm a big peanut butter fan.
Yeah. Who isn't really?
Yeah.
Okay. So Kraft, only peanuts. This is the crunchy version. What are the ingredients? Peanuts, 100% select roasted peanuts. Okay.
One ingredient.
So it's processed to the extent that the peanuts have been roasted and then ground up. The normal peanut butter, I hesitate to call it the normal one, the regular mainstream one.
Like the Jiffy garbage.
Well, it's still Kraft Smooth, the regular stuff. The ingredients on this one are select roasted peanuts, soybean oil, sugars, 2 different kinds, hydrogenated vegetable oil, awesome, cottonseed and rapeseed oil, salt, and mono and diglycerides.
Yeah.
You're like, what? Like, why does peanut butter that's already delicious by itself need to be adulterated with 1, 2, 3 different types of seed oils, 2 types of sugar, and mono and diglycerides?
Yeah.
It basically became icing sugar, peanut flavored icing.
Yeah. And I remember when I made the switch from traditional peanut butter to like actual natural peanut butter, there was definitely a bit of it's not as good, but you just have to get over that little hump because they're designing that peanut butter in a way to make you want it and make it more desirable and sweeter. And you just don't need that. You can easily transfer over to a natural peanut butter and it's great.
And yes, the oil separates and you have to stir it, but that's why you guys work out. I'm not sure what those strong arms are for if it's not to stir this peanut butter. Hot tip, if you put it in the cupboard upside down, when you go to take the lid off and open the new jar, it's easier to stir if the oil's on the bottom and not the hard stuff on the bottom. Pro tip. Okay, so hot sauces. Frank's Red Hot, classic. Ingredients are aged cayenne red peppers, vinegar, water, salt, garlic powder.
All food.
It's food. You could make that in your kitchen. This other knockoff sriracha that I bought.
Because there's a shortage right now.
There's a shortage, and I didn't look at the ingredients before I bought this. Pimento jalapenos, vinegar, water, sugar, salt, garlic, xanthan gum, sodium benzoate, potassium sorbate. Damn it.
Yeah.
So guar gum's an emulsifier, and then so is xanthan gum's a like thickener, and a couple of preservatives that didn't need to be in there. It could have just been peppers and vinegar and water and garlic and salt. It would have been fine.
Yeah, you look at things like mustard and it's just like vinegar and spices. And that's it.
Vinegar, mustard,
you look at things
water.
like ketchup and there's sugar and whatever. And it's like, yeah, you're going to have to give up some things that you probably enjoy, but that's fine. It's just for a little bit.
Yeah, just do the experiment of just see how good you could feel if you only ate real food for a month.
Yeah.
There's a few aspects. One of the big ones there is your gut microbiome.
Right.
That's like the frontier physiology and especially the nutrition related stuff right now. We don't really know what exactly is up down there, but like something very complex. The microbial density of the human gut is one of the highest microbial densities of any places on earth, including like rainforest soil, which I think is like a fun fact. There's some people that think that the bacteria may have evolved us to just cart them around, that we're just an elaborate meat suitcase to carry bacteria around, which is kind of a fun way to think about it.
Isn't there more bacterial cells in the human body than there are human cells?
Yep. Yeah. You are more bacteria than you are person.
So creepy.
So, and they're doing all kinds of stuff down there. They're synthesizing short chain fatty acids. They're sending neurotransmitters. They're making vitamins. They're communicating to the brain. The gut is made of neural tissue. There's all kinds of very complex things. Lots of research relating gut dysbiosis to not just like chronic disease, of course, but like anxiety and depression and development of Alzheimer's and all sorts of things going on. So a big part of taking out these emulsifiers, stabilizers, artificial sweeteners, those things has to do with restoring the gut microbiome.
Do you remember the like old school Ninja Turtles cartoon, Krang the Brain? And he was just this like brain in a stomach. Yeah. And he has a little suit that would do all the stuff for him. That's totally what we are. We're just, this little Krang in our stomach telling us what to do.
Pretty much. And people kind of know that. We use things like, I had a gut feeling. And we understand that a lot of our feelings or our emotions are not necessarily centered in our brains. Yeah. We kind of have ways in our language that we talk about that. Oh, butterflies in my stomach. And, your emotions and how your gut feels are very much overlapping. Yeah. And there's lots of things in the modern world that are very, very terrible for the gut microbiome. Alcohol. Yeah. It's a big one, unfortunately, very terrible. Antibiotics, as much as we need them to save lives sometimes, is horrendous for the gut microbiome. So overuse of antibiotics, overexposure, or the use of antibiotics when they're necessary, but without any protocol after to restore the gut microbiome with like probiotics or fermented foods or anything like that. We just, drop napalm down there and then don't do anything to fix it after. So part of it is removing the things out of the diet that are directly harmful to the gut microbiome, and then adding back in all these natural foods that are like our fermented dairy products or sauerkraut or cooked and cooled rice and potatoes, resistant starch, and those things feeds the good bugs and all that sort of stuff. So as much as a healthy diet is about what you do eat, it's also very much about what you don't eat. Both sides of those are very important.
So the whole thing with all of this is just making some smart swaps, right? Like trying to find the things that don't have any of these weird preservatives and ingredients that you don't want to eat. Again, keep it simple. Single ingredient items are usually pretty good.
Yeah.
Start reading some labels. Another one we forgot to mention that we use all the time for DASH especially, and this is great for any of the like real bread people out there, are these like corn tortilla wraps. So these are the ones, they're Manny's that are available at Co-op and at Sobeys, I believe.
Yeah, at most of the grocery stores.
These ones though, the ingredients are water, white corn flour, cellulose gum, guar gum, propionic acid, and a whole bunch of other stuff. There's 10 more ingredients and I don't know what any of these words are. So these ones,
not food.
But then these ones, which are right next to them at Sobeys, these ones are Casa Bonita. Same thing. They're corn tortillas, and the ingredients in this one is stone ground corn mass, water, fumaric acid, and a trace of lime and salt. So way better.
Yeah. So fumaric acid's related to citric acid, like comes from limes and stuff. So that would be one of those naturally occurring food preservatives that people have been using for a long time, like citric acids and salts and that kind of stuff that helped preserve color and flavor of food for longer. So yeah, and this is why I have such a beef with macro counting. I just think counting macros is so stupid because both of these things have 100 calories. They have the same macronutrient content, the same fat, the same carbohydrates, the same amount of protein, but one is a chemical shitstorm of ultra processed food and one is real food.
Yeah.
And we only know that not by looking at the nutrition facts, but by looking at the ingredients. Right. What is this? What is in it? What has been done to it?
Yeah.
You know, is this how grandma at Casa Bonita would have actually made tortillas? And would she be looking at propionic acid, benzoic acid, phosphoric acid, cornstarch, sodium propionate, xanthan gum, amylase, methylparaben, propylparaben, calcium hydroxide, going, what the F is all that?
Yeah.
And why does it need to be in a tortilla? It doesn't, you know?
And we did a cooking class once and we made corn mass tortillas, and they're super easy. It was literally like the corn stuff and water, and you just mix it together and flatten it out and grill it.
Which is how people in South America have been making tortillas forever and ever. Yeah.
And it's so easy. It's so convenient. Everybody loves tacos. I mean, who doesn't love tacos, right? So if you have a hard time and you love sandwiches, then just do tacos for the month.
Yeah. We've, I think, talked about this before where we think tacos are the ultimate travel food.
Yeah.
Because we'll take all these little things. We bought a big griddle, actually. Cheese, which we now have to shred ourselves with our shredded abs.
Yep.
Taco spice ground beef. Fold them into a little thing. Cheese, as I always teach the kids, cheese is food glue. So it holds them together. We fry them in ghee. They're amazing, crispy, delicious, meaty, cheesy little things. They're like totally handheld. The cheese keeps it together. It's not all falling out of it everywhere. And we'll take like sacks of them on airplanes.
Yeah.
And stuff with us.
And whenever we ask Dash what he wants for lunch, his number one answer is always tacos.
Tacos, 100% of the time. Yeah.
We do it once or twice a week, and then the rest of the time we're letting him have just leftovers. But
you can do it with like eggs for breakfast tacos. You can do chicken in there. You can do pulled pork. Like you can mix it up too.
Yeah, all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah. And then, okay, so ideally we're eating single ingredient items we're cooking at home. Survival guide for when you're not in that situation. And trust me, I get it. I've spent a third of this year sleeping not in my own bed. So I understand the struggle of trying to keep it together on the road. Almost everything in a restaurant is going to be covered in seed oils.
Yeah.
So in a regular restaurant, steak and vegetables is usually your best bet. Ask that they're cooked in butter and not oil.
Yeah.
Probably going to be doing okay there.
A lot of restaurants will sell like a half chicken or something as well. Things to be careful of are the meats with a lot of sauces and stuff. Like you would think ribs would be good, but the barbecue sauce is probably full of sugar and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah. So best bet, steak and veggies, ask for butter.
Yeah.
If you're in like a pub place, burger, no bun. If they have a fried egg or avocado, add that on there too. Cheese, probably fine. Obviously, you don't have control or full knowledge of what exactly they put in the burger and did it have breadcrumbs in it or something. But like you're doing the best you can with what you got. Obviously, you skip the fries. Never, ever, ever eat fries.
Yeah.
Unless you made them yourself.
And the mistake that we used to make years ago when we were trying to switch to a lower carb thing is we would have deep fried food, not realizing how bad the seed oils were.
Yeah.
And every restaurant uses canola oil or some variation of a seed oil to do their deep frying. So unfortunately, you can't have wings or any of that kind of stuff either. But if you like that type of stuff, you can do it at home. Costco has wings that they sell, and the only ingredient is chicken wings. There's nothing in it.
So just frozen chicken wings.
We throw them in our air fryer, and the kids go crazy for them. And they're great.
That's another easy weeknight thing.
Yeah.
They go from frozen in the air fryer to cooked and crispy in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Throw a little salt and pepper on there, little Franks on there. Easy dinner.
Yeah.
Anything out of the deep fryer in a restaurant is, like you said, going to be seed oils. Those polyunsaturated fatty acids that they're made from, the omega-6, are highly unstable, vulnerable to oxidation at high heat. And those oils in the restaurant fryers are heated repeatedly for probably days at a time, 7 days or more before they change out the oil, which creates a plethora of these toxic aldehydes that basically create the same type of chemical toxicity in your body as smoking. So you want to Google something horrifying, Google toxic aldehydes.
Yep.
Malcolm Gladwell has a great podcast called McDonald's Broke My Heart.
Oh, yeah.
An episode of revisionist history all about when McDonald's switched from using beef tallow, which is more saturated fat, more stable at high heat, to using vegetable oils, which is a misnomer. There's no vegetables involved, in the mid-90s, and made the fries way more toxic and way less tasty. They're just way more bland and oily, and they're not the same. So if you want to eat fries, that's fine. You just make them at home with beef tallow. Yeah. And they're amazing.
Yeah, we had hash browns this morning. You just cut up a potato, you kind of like pre-boiled it, and then you cooked it in beef tallow, and they're amazing.
Yep. Beef tallow you can either get from Pig and Pantry downtown, or you can buy just frozen beef suet, and you just render it yourself. So all that means is you melt it down, and there'll be a few little crumbly bits in there, and you just scoop them off, and then what you've got left is beef tallow. Amazing.
And because beef tallow is super stable, you can reuse it.
Yeah, you can heat it and cool it more than once, unlike the vegetable oils. Okay, so sorry, we got a little off track. We were on survival guide of we're away from home. Restaurant, steak and vegetables.
Yeah.
Pub food, burger, no bun, add an egg or avocado if you can.
Salad dressings, no go.
No go. Skip the coleslaw, no salad dressings, no fries. If you can do like raw veggies or something, they can do like carrots and celery or something on the side for you, sure.
Yeah.
Or you can just make it like more carnivore and just focus on the burger and maybe an egg or something. I was in Toronto airport a little while ago. No food with me. I'm unprepared. I've set myself up poorly here to start with. But I was like, I'm hungry. In the little airport newsstand thing, just wall to wall ultra processed food and just fancy packaging. And even the healthy ones are still all just garbage, ultra processed foods, except I found those 2 little hard boiled eggs that come in the package together, some dill pickles, those little dilly bite things. And I found some beef sticks. So kind of like beef jerky, but they didn't have sugar in them or anything.
Right.
So I was like, all right, there we go. Eggs, pickles for sure. Fine. I would need to go back and double check the ingredients on the beef sticks to make sure there wasn't anything else crazy in there, but that's fine. And it's going to tide me over. I'm going to have some protein and some salt, a little pickles, a little vegetable in there, drink some water. I'm going to be fine. Yeah. If I could not find a single real food item, then I can just fast. Yeah. And that's fine. Like I don't have to eat just cause food is there or just cause I'm slightly hungry. Like you should have the ability to comfortably go 24 hours between meals and not die and not have an emergency. Like you'll be fine. You can sit with a little bit of discomfort and be like, I'm hungry. But again, stay calm. It's a bit like doing Tabata assault bike sprints to be like, this is uncomfortable, but like, you're not going to die. You don't need to panic about it. You should be able to go from dinner one day to like dinner the next day without having access to food and you'll be okay. Yeah. And if you literally cannot, if you're like getting shaky and lightheaded and foggy or having like stress related symptoms like hanger, like you're lashing out at people and you can't control your emotions, that's a mega red flag that your metabolism is seriously fucked up and you need to do some work here to fix that. So
this thing is for you.
Don't let that go by unnoticed because that's a huge warning sign that you're like on a bad path, but still within the realm of you can fix it. Sure. And bring that back in.
Yeah. I think often people go to the grocery store and just grab some convenience food thinking it's better than fast food. But even in a grocery store, like they still ultra process their foods. They're like sushi will have sugar added to the rice, and the sauces and stuff are going to be
deep fried shrimp.
Yeah, it's not any better than going to a fast food restaurant just because it's in a grocery store. So you have to start looking at ingredient lists. You know what was a tough one that I just realized? Those ready to go rice bags. You just throw them in the microwave for 90 seconds. I always thought those were just fine. And then I finally read the ingredient list and like, no, there's canola oil in there.
In all of them except for one I found.
Yeah.
That's a coconut flavored rice that uses coconut oil.
Oh, there you go.
I've spent my time in like Superstore in whatever city I was in. Cause when I travel, which I do almost every other weekend, I try my best. I try to hit a grocery store instead of a restaurant whenever I can, but I want something I can just microwave in a hotel room. And I'm like, okay, like single serving items. I'm like sitting there reading 27 different packages of rice and going, seriously, none of these are food. They all have shit added to them. Why does it have to be like this? I just wanted to eat a little bit of rice.
Yeah. The best thing you can do is just cook at home, plan ahead, get yourself a little Dash thermos, put your leftovers in there, and you've got your lunch. You're good to go.
Yeah. So we did this experiment one time from the parking lot, like by where Canadian Tire is. There's a Burger King and a Sobeys. And we're like, let's time this. You went through the drive-through and I ran into Sobeys and got like a chicken and an apple and an avocado or something, like a whole roasted chicken. And I was out and done faster than you could get through the drive-through at lunchtime. So
especially at lunchtime.
Yeah. Don't come at me that it takes too long. I don't have time. Bullshit. Same. It took less time. You got better food for, like we were saying, basically less cost. With fast food is not cheap these days either.
Yeah.
In order to make that possible though, one of the things I always have on me is plastic cutlery in my little travel bag, my backpack with me all the time. I always have a knife and fork.
Yeah.
So that if I'm picking up something like a roasted chicken instead of a burger, something I can eat with my hands, I always have cutlery with me.
For sure.
And then when I travel, I always have a little collapsible Tupperware so that if I buy like a chicken or something the night before at the grocery store, I can bring part of it to the seminar the next day with me for lunch. So that I always try to be a little bit prepared with those things. Okay. So we're looking forward to a good month. Tighten it up. I really would like this to be the kind of thing that everybody as the whole community is doing / thinking about.
Yeah. And the way it's going to work is you'll have a online course available and you sign up for the course. It's free. We're not charging anything. You just sign up and put your name out there.
Yeah.
And you just have to like, did I do it or did I not do it?
Yeah.
Every day.
And you're trying, obviously the goal is 30 out of 30.
Yeah.
You should be able to go 30 days without needing any food. But if even that thought of like, I have to go a whole month without sugar or without a drink gives you some anxiety, sit with that feeling for a little bit and think about how maybe you've gotten yourself into addiction type territory. And that's a serious thing that could be addressed. And let's start to work towards just better.
Yeah.
If you have not gone a single day in the last month without ultra processed food or alcohol, even one day in the next month would be a win.
Yep.
And if maybe you had one day a week in the next month, that'd be an even better win. And if you had every other day without alcohol or ultra processed foods, like we're getting better, right? So if you're going from 0 days without that stuff in your diet to some, that's an improvement.
Yeah.
If you're pretty good and you eat mostly well and don't drink that much and you take it to like, you just have 30 perfect days in a row, awesome. We'll do a little draw for a prize at the end for anyone that can go 30 out of 30. But yeah, I guess it does progress, not perfection, but
Absolutely.
Perfection would be cool. Aim as high as you can.
Yeah. Don't let it be that you got 5 days in and then fall off and something happens on day 6 and they're like, fuck it. No, you just get back on it, right? Do as many of these days as you can. Yeah. It's supposed to be challenging. So challenge yourself in a new way and just see how it feels.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I really enjoy what happens if I do this. Nothing that I try, I have the expectation of it being permanent.
Yeah.
But I like to try and just see. I don't like the idea of being hooked on anything that I don't need. If I get to the point where I'm like, I need coffee in the morning, guess what I'm doing next? Fucking no coffee for 30 days. That's for sure. If I'm like, I need to eat bread. Well, guess what I'm doing is I'm going no bread for 30 days. I do not like being beholden to these things. Like, I need a drink. I hate cold water. Ugh. So I've been trying to challenge myself to do the cold plunge thing. And it can just suck for like 3 minutes and I won't die. It'll be fine.
Sure.
So like pushing ourselves to just deal with a little bit of discomfort. And I think that's the type of person that gravitates towards doing CrossFit.
Yeah.
We're the people that are the willing. we're willing to do the hard thing. We're willing to work at high intensity. We're willing to address our nutrition and try better and not drink all the time and, you know, do those things and go to bed when we should. And just like, you find that CrossFitters are generally the kind of people that tend to do well in their careers as well and be able to maintain functional relationships in their lives. And, you know, like they're invested in their kids and they just do all these things that like take effort and are hard, and they're just willing to do the thing.
Yeah. Here's one more thing to do.
Here's one more thing to do, and let's do it together because that's always more fun.
Way better.
Book club, no shit.
No shit November.
See you in November.